back in a jail cell. And we have that cooperation here now. It's the right thing to do, and it makes this community safer. This community is safer because we arrested 4,000 illegal aliens in this, over 4,000 illegal aliens here, many of them public safety threat, not all of them. As I said, we're going to force immigration law, but this community is much safer because of President Trump's leadership and the men and women standing on this stage.
Thank you. That's all the questions we're going to take right now.
All right, so we took Tom Homan's press conference because he was going to give us an update on Minnesota. We didn't expect this news. He kind of buried the lead. It came towards the end of his statement. The surge in operations there is going to come to a conclusion. Tom Homan saying that he had talked to President Trump and that President Trump agreed that they had achieved what they had come to do. There will be some additional resources there for the immigration, ICE enforcement, law enforcement that will continue, but they had some pretty stunning success. Talk about the worst of the worst. He described some of the worst.
Yes, he did.
And they've making that news today means that Governor Walz, in about an hour, is going to speak as well.
I thought the language was conciliatory toward the mayor, toward the governor. He said he's had cooperation with every sheriff in every county. That's 87 counties in the state of Minnesota. Two numbers that really strike out at me: 4,000 arrests made in Minneapolis area, 3,364 missing and unaccompanied children. Over what time period wasn't clear.
What I heard him say was that came in during the Biden administration. We'll double check that, but that's what I heard him say.
And the other thing he said is that smart law enforcement is the best law enforcement. They're going to pursue that. And the deportations will continue all across the country. There was a deadline Friday night to keep the government open and running. And you wonder if this has any impact on 6 or 7 Democratic senators to vote in favor, along with Republicans.
And we have a great guest on that coming up, Senator Katie Britt, who is in charge of that negotiation for the Republicans, so maybe we'll break even more news.
Okay.
But in the meantime, Jonathan Fay, he's a former acting ICE director, and he listened along and watched that press conference with us. Jonathan, think this is the right time for them to draw down?
Yes, I do, and I think Tom Homan's not only press conference today, but the other two, it's really been pitch perfect, laying out what the priorities are, what ICE is really about, what they've been doing. And I think it was great because, like, I think as Bill said, you know, talking about the missing kids that have been found, talking about the number of people that have been arrested, I think 4,000 people. So this has been, by and large, a very successful operation in terms of removing illegal aliens. And he emphasized, you know, I think murderers, rapists, gang members are getting removed from Minnesota, and Minnesota is safer because of it. I think the other thing that's really striking is how much cooperation, and Bill mentioned that as well, with all of these counties, which is a major change from what Minnesota was doing beforehand. And what they are doing, I think, is kind of an interesting thing. They're not necessarily honoring detainers, but they're essentially doing the same thing by saying, 48 hours in advance of a release, we're going to let you know. So that's in effect a detainer. And that keeps everyone safer, gets the criminals off the streets. And it's really hard to argue about that in terms of policy. So I think that's really important. The other thing that I think he did that I think is so important to emphasize, this thing about churches and schools and hospitals, this has been a false narrative going back to the Biden administration. It not only demeans and defames ICE, but it also scares the community, and they've never been doing this. They've never been running up in hospitals or schools or churches to arrest people, and the only time they would consider it would be if there was an immediate safety threat in those places, which everyone would want. So I'm really glad he pushed back against that narrative, also pushed back on some of these other things, and also, you know, made the point, which we've all made over and over again, if you have an issue with immigration law, that's an issue with Congress. That's not an issue with the men and women that are enforcing the laws enacted by Congress, which they are required to do under the Constitution. And also, you know, we always have to emphasize, President Trump ran on this issue. This isn't something he didn't run on. The American people knew it was the issue, and they voted for him, and he has a responsibility to carry it out.
Jonathan, there are 12 states that are considered sanctuary states, plus Washington, D.C. There are 4 counties. There are 18 cities. Now, Homan gave us the clear impression there that they're going to change their strategy. And you wonder in these other cities and states, if they go in those jurisdictions and they encounter ICE watch like they did in Minneapolis, what do you think Homan and his men and women have learned from this experience especially after the very public killing of 2 people who did not like what ICE was doing in Minneapolis?
I think the most important sort of takeaway from this is even when you have these politicians with their, and I say extreme rhetoric in the terms of Tim Walz, but go in there and talk to them and say, here's what we're going to do, here's why we're going to do it. And, if you can cooperate a little bit, but stay out of our way. And also, if you want less ICE enforcement in your community, cooperate in the jails, because again, it takes 1 or 2 agents to arrest somebody in a jail. It's much safer than 10 to 15 out on the street. So, but I think communication